to OverBoost 49. OverBoost is a podcast interview series featuring discussions with speedrunners about their history in speedrunning and gaming and the runs they're passionate about. I am your host, PMC Trilogy, and with me today is KonceptioN2. KonceptioN, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I've listened to quite a few episodes of this. It's an honor to be a part of it.
Yeah, so this is fun. I don't plan this. You know, it's hard to know how things will line up ahead of time. Like, because if you've watched past episodes, you know I love to start out the podcast by talking about something that's going on right now. And as it happens, I was doing my due diligence and scoping around, and I noticed that you set yourself up for quite a busy weekend.
I sure did. See, I have this problem where I see a marathon is open and then I click submit. I don't really, there's no like thought process in between. So if I see a marathon's open, I submit, and then I worry about the problems after, which has led me to having 5 marathon runs this weekend. So
now are those all in different marathons, the same marathon, or? That
is 4 different marathons. 4. So one marathon, yeah, one marathon I have 2 runs for, but the other are all solos in different marathons.
God, see, I would have guessed that it was going to be like 2 or 3, you know, like that you would have like maybe back-to-back runs in 2 different marathons and like one other one, right? Like that would have been my guess, because I was looking through and I noticed that, like, because this is I feel bad because I only noticed like an hour ago, because I was like making sure I got all my script covered, and I was like, all right, I know you're in Midwest Speed Fling. What else are you doing? Give us the walkthrough on your weekend.
Okay, so let's break it down. So we have OverBoost podcast. So happy to be here. Later on, it's going to be tonight for me because I'm not going to go to sleep before, but technically it'll be tomorrow morning about 3:45 my time, which is central. I'll be running in Mid-Spring Speed Fling. I'll be doing Bugsnax for them. Going to go to sleep. Going to wake up. Going to run Grim Fandango for UKSG, which is the UK Speedrunners Gathering. Going to do some work during the day. Overnight again, I'm going to that day I will get a full night of sleep that night, which will be great.
Yes.
The day I'll wake up on Saturday. I'll be doing my first run for SpeedDocs' launch party event.
Oh, launch party. Yeah.
Then I will, I got the rest of that day off so I can, relax a little bit. Overnight, I will be doing a Pokemon Sword DLC run for Game Over Cancer. Then I will go to sleep. And then I will do my last run, which will be my second run for SpeedDocs, which is another Grim Fandango run. So yeah, it's gonna be I'm gonna need to sleep in on Monday.
Okay, so let me make sure I got this. So you're doing Grim Fandango for what, UKSG and SpeedDocs, right?
Correct.
And then you had the Pokemon DLC run for
Game Over Cancer.
Bugsnax for
Mid-Spring and SpeedDoc. Yeah.
And okay, so that's not okay. So like obviously it's not great, but you do have, you are repeating 2 of those runs for.
Yes.
Okay.
Three different runs, but 5 different events. Well, 3 different games, 5 different runs, 4 different events. I set myself up for failure, I think.
Have you done all of these runs for events before? Because I know one of the VODs you sent me was Grim Fandango for Hotfix. So
yes.
You've done it in that capacity at least. Have you done like the Bugsnax and the Pokemon at events previously? Yeah,
I've done all of these at events before. Bugsnax, obviously, it's a newer game, so but because it's a newer game, it's gathered a lot of attention. So I've actually done it in quite a few marathons in the past like month or 2 alone.
It's spring, it's marathon season. Yeah,
for sure. Grim Fandango, I've done quite a bunch. Hotfix as well. I've run it for ESA. I've run it for Calathon. Other smaller events as well. And then Pokemon Sword, I've done that at a Mid-Spring event. I've done that again at Calathon as well. I just did it for their Stand Strong event this past weekend. Luckily I have marathon experience with all these as well too, so I'm not going in with those nerves like, can I even do this in estimate or anything like that.
Do you have so of either these 3 runs or other runs, do you have a favorite like marathon workhorse? There's like, whenever you see a new marathon that you've never submitted to at all, what's the first thing you lay down on them?
So previously I would have said probably like Pokemon Red. So I run Pokemon Red any percent glitchless as well. I would have said that previously, but since Bugsnax has kind of taken over my life, it's Bugsnax now, which I run multiple categories for. So first thing I want to submit is Bugsnax any percent and no major skips, and I'm going to learn 100% soon as well. So
cool.
Yeah.
No, I mean that's honestly that's got to be gratifying to like pick up categories in a game and be like, no, I want more. I want more categories. Give it to me.
If you look down my speedrun.com page, you'll just see a lot of games with one category, just one category, one category, until you get to Bugsnax, and that's the one I just want to get down. I have the world record for PS5 for any percent and no major skips. I want to get the 100% as well to lock down the main category sweep there. So
awesome.
I'm just highly motivated by that game. It just caught me by surprise last year. So
now we'll get into more of you getting into that game in a bit, but I do want to ask this now since it's also kind of current events. Sure. You have a PS5. I do. Was that easy? Was that hard?
It was hard. So I was lucky enough to pre-order it upon release. So I got it the release day.
Wow.
Now, did I in that fated day in September spend 4 or 5 hours trying to get that pre-order? I sure did. Furiously clicking that Best Buy, please let me place the order button until it finally worked. And yeah, so that was hard. But it was worth it. Very much so. I use it literally every day for a variety of gaming or media things.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It took my big purchase of last fall was getting a 3070, which took some time and involved some Chrome extensions that would alert me when Newegg pages changed and stuff like that. And finally got through, and it made a difference because I was on a 960 before. So
yeah.
needed a little help there.
A little bit.
Yeah. Well, speaking of old things, let's go back in time. Let's go to the start. Where does your history with gaming begin? Does that come from particular family, friends? How does that enter into your life?
Sure, yeah. I became enamored with gaming pretty quickly, and I kind of attribute it going back a little bit to Pokemon. I was really into the show as a child. I saw that there are ways to participate with Pokemon outside of just watching the same show all the time. Found out that they have these games for something called a Game Boy, and I talked to my parents about it, as much as a small child can do, and say, hey, I would like to try this out. And that's really like my first solidified memory of playing a game long term, at least, was Pokemon. I'd played a little bit at friends' houses, some Duck Hunt, some Mario Brothers on NES and things like that, but I didn't get to own those. Game Boy was really my first foray into gaming, and then I jumped into N64 and stuff after that, and yeah, just the snowball effect took off from there, really. Now,
would that have been like a Game Boy Pocket, a Game Boy Color? What would you have been playing on?
It would have been the darker green color of the Pocket. It was my first system, yeah. I got Pokemon Red and the Little Mermaid game for Game Boy, which is underrated. Fast speedrun as well. It's like 7 minutes or something.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
See, that's funny because I definitely have something similar where I had an older sibling who was not really good at sharing. And so he would like flip his consoles before I got a chance to play with them. And so I ended up really only having a Game Boy like be my thing for a period of time. And so I definitely also have memories of having, I think it was like the teal Game Boy Pocket, and like getting like the Indiana Jones and Empire Strikes Back games, which are not not but did you like the Little Mermaid? Was that something that you were able to play at the time, or was it just all Pokemon?
I mean, Pokemon dominated for sure, but like on off breaks, I really did like to play through that Little Mermaid game. My mom actually got real into it at that time as well. So like whenever maybe I went to sleep early for school, she probably picked it up, fought her way through those bosses and pearls and all that. So, but yeah. I mean, it was mostly Pokemon, but that game is good. I played it again not too long ago, and it holds up.
Now, with N64, what would have been the hot N64 games that you had been playing?
First one was Pokemon Snap. That's like I got it for Christmas that year that I got the Game Boy, and then I got Pokemon Snap with it, and that's where I kind of went off the handle with video games, is where I could not be stopped at that point. But then we had Smash come, we had Stadium as well, Pokemon Stadium. And then I started getting into things like Mario Party, Paper Mario, which is one of my favorite games of all time as well.
That's a banger. Yep.
Yeah. And then we moved quickly on to what did I go to next? I think it was the PS2 after that. I had the N64 for quite a while, probably some Game Boy upgrades, Advance, SP, and all that. Moved to the PS2, got into some higher polygon graphics, marginally so. Yeah.
Now I have to ask, because you brought Pokemon Snap up,
yes.
Are you excited for new Pokemon Snap? Is that on your radar?
It's on my radar. It's pre-ordered. I'm gonna play through it casually first, and then me and one of my mods actually plan on doing a race of not knowing any speedrun strategies. We're just gonna play through it once, and then we're gonna race it, and then see how it goes. And if that captures me, I can easily see that being like my next big speedrunning project that I want to pour a lot of time into, probably. Yeah,
I mean, hey, you know, if it's something you have a history of, something you enjoy, and something that's popular, you know, these things can all overlap in a synergistic way.
Exactly.
Well, okay, so let's get the PS2 then. What's how PS2 now? You know, one thing I'm going to ask too. Now, this maybe PS2 is not this console for you, but a question that I usually like to ask when doing this history segment is there a point where you take ownership of your gaming hobby in a particular way? And what I mean to say by that is, you know, instead of just being gifts from, you know, family at a holiday or something like that, you know, you go out and seek this. Like for example, for me, PlayStation 2 was the one where I spent a year and a half saving up my money to buy it on launch day in October 2000. You know, and then when I was 15, I had a summer job where I bought a laptop so I could play games. So was PlayStation 2 like that for you, or did you have a later console maybe that was more along those lines?
No, coincidentally, that PS2 was the system for me. What had happened, we were actually gearing up for a move. I grew up in Oklahoma, and we were gearing up for a move to Rhode Island, so kind of cross country, south to north. And we were selling off a bunch of stuff via yard sale. I sold off a bunch of stuff, and then I had all this money. My mom was like, well, this is your stuff, so this is your money. You can do with it whatever you want. So I got a PS2. All my friends who were really into it. Wasn't around launch. I think it was a little bit after it had dropped price. But you know, they had it. I had played it. I loved it. I wanted to get involved with that. So I used that yard sale money. I believe I sadly sold a extensive binder of Pokemon cards, which is probably worth thousands upon thousands of dollars now, at this yard sale for chump change. But I got a PS2 out of it, which I still have. I still have the one that I bought from a kid. It's in my bedroom right now. I still use it, still have it.
Is that like a 50K probably, or you don't know the model?
I don't know.
Is it a fat or a slim?
It's a fat. Okay. It's a fat. Yeah, but yep, same one I bought all those years ago. It still works. Still have the same controller. Even hasn't fallen apart. So yeah,
that's, you know, I respect that. I've generally been that sort of person who like takes care of my stuff. I not like I actively do it, but you know, just sort of like, I don't have a disintegrating field around me that I find some people do. I mean, I was fortunate in that while I did sell my ancestral PS2, my spouse also does not have a disintegrating field, and I am now the recipient of her PS2, which I have since then, you know, fixed up with Free McBoot and Open PS2 Loader and all that stuff.
Yeah. Awesome.
What would have been big PS2 stuff for you and the friends then?
My friends were big into a game called Tribes Aerial Assault. Not sure if you're familiar. You might be, actually.
Wait, yeah. Well, I know Tribes. Yeah. Well, you know, obviously there's a PC version of that. I mean, I just need to look up something. I'm curious about.
I was gonna say, if anyone might have remembered it, it's probably you. But yeah, it's a. It had, if I remember correctly, I haven't played it since then probably, but it had a campaign mode where you can play single player. My friend, I never got this, but my friend got that online adapter that you could plug into the back of your PS2 to play online for the first time. And we played some online Tribes, played that a bunch. But geez, yeah, I haven't thought about that game until this moment in years. But yeah, first person mech shooter, I believe. It might be third person.
Yeah, I mean, Tribes has like some mech elements. Apparently, I'm looking at the page, and it looks like, I guess there must have been. It says that the game was released as freeware by because Hi-Rez, which is the company that publishes Smite now, the MOBA Smite. They have, I think, the license to Tribes, and so I guess they must have released like some version of the game Presumably it's run on PC. Like you would, maybe or not. I don't know. I mean, obviously, some fans find a way of making these things work. So I don't want to say they're not making it work on PS2s, because certainly open PS2 loaders, I already mentioned, is a thing. So you could certainly do that. But no, that's cool. I mean, there's lots of unsung, especially early PS2, because it's just what you mentioned. All the SOCOM Navy SEALs was like another early PS2 online game that people were super into. This is an excellent segue into my next regular question, which is what are big multiplayer games? Because we're going to be talking about single player games, because this is a speedrunning podcast. But people have played a lot of multiplayer games, couch co-op, early online dedicated servers, MOBAs, MMOs. What of that has been big in your life?
It's basically Halo for me. It started with Halo 2. OG Xbox. I never actually owned an OG Xbox until much later, but I had my best friend who I basically lived at his house for a while. We played some Halo 2 nonstop. Halo 3, obviously, when that came out in 07, I played that nonstop. And honestly, I still have. I grew up, in Rhode Island with this specific set of friends that I'd play with all the time. We get together once a week, we play games, and it's usually Halo. Still, we're going on the Master Chief Collection right now, but we're playing that. I've also really enjoyed Overwatch as of late. I've played a good chunk of that.
Is that something that you just picked up, or were you active in that when it launched?
I got that at launch. I can't say I was like active is a tough word, because I was not good at it or anything, or competitive in any way, but I enjoyed it quite a bit and played it a bunch with my friends. And then I've played a ton of World of Warcraft, but never on like a PvP sense. I would just always start a character, level them up, and then fall off when I get tired.
Right. So you're not the person who's doing raids once a week with a specific group. No.
Not at all. Not at all. I wanted to be that person, but I just don't have the time.
It is very time. It's funny. I had the high school experience in like 2004, 2005 of friends who were dedicated, and so I know like a lot of nouns. Like Blackwing Lair, Ragnaros, Molten Core, but like never did any of them myself. But I'd be like, it's Saturday night, guys. Like, do you want to hang out? And like, no, we got a raid. That's the lifestyle.
Does that make us cooler than them or not as cool as them? I can't really tell.
I don't know. Because I wasn't necessarily doing anything better. Eventually we got into Dota, early Dota. So like maybe that things got worse instead of better.
Maybe.
Yeah. No, that's so it's Halo, Overwatch. It's interesting. So, the Halo, of course, Halo 2, Halo 3, you would have been doing that. When you do MCC with friends now, have you guys all fully converted to keyboard mouse players, or are you playing it on the pad?
So we got a mixture. One of the reasons why we do that game specifically is the cross-platform component. So I have a couple friends who play on Xbox and use controllers. I had an Xbox, but it has since died. That's the one thing that has died on me. I don't have the disintegration field as well usually. But I play on PC with controller, which is unpopular probably, but I play on PC with controller, and I have another friend who plays mouse and keyboard.
There's more people who do that than you think, and like it's fine. Like I'm super into keyboard mouse, but I've definitely had people on this podcast before who like streamed like Doom Eternal, and they're like, I'm gonna play on a pad on PC, like what it's just comfortable. So no, it's fine.
Yeah, that's just I tried the mouse and keyboard. I was just getting obliterated. I just had to plug in that controller and get that familiar feel from all the way back in 2005 or whatever.
No, I hear you. I mean, that was definitely a formative one, because I mean, Halo 1 and Halo 2, I definitely played a lot with friends. I did the Halo LAN parties and stuff. So I'm definitely right there. I mean, right there with you for that. Well, all right. So we talked a little bit about multiplayer, but this is a speedrun interview podcast, so of course the obligatory question is, how did you learn about speedrunning?
So I learned about speedrunning when I first ever started streaming. So I started streaming because it all comes full circle, because I wanted to play some Pokemon games on stream. It was right around when they were doing I forget what year, 20th anniversary. They were about to do all those like re-releases on 3DS for the OG Pokemon games. And I wanted to play on stream. I played through Red casually. I was playing through Crystal next. and I had somebody pop in my chat, and they were like, "Oh, I was just watching somebody speedrun this game. You should check it out. I feel like you'd be pretty good at it." So I hopped over to that streamer. After a little bit, watched them stream for quite a bit, just got hooked on speedrunning right away. And that's when I started to learn Pokemon Red, any percent glitchless, which is still a very, very popular speedrun as it is. And that was probably about 2016, I think. And then I actually moved from Rhode Island to Florida, not a couple months after that. So I took a long break from streaming, probably like a year or two even. Got that speedrunning bug again, just watching streamers, came back to Pokemon Red, grinding down my time a little bit, and then I just wanted to start looking at other games. And at first, and it still holds true to now, I'm highly motivated by playing games that I had a childhood connection with for speedruns, which is why Pokemon Red is where I started. And I quickly moved on to other games that I played a ton when I was a kid as well.
You know, I always like to get a snapshot of the threshold of someone getting into the act of speedrunning, streaming, kind of making all the pieces connect in terms of capture and recording and submitting runs. And doing it in 2016, thankfully, that's probably at least on the streaming software side of things, easier, just because I think OBS is more refined at that point. Twitch is more refined at that point. But you're streaming Pokemon games, which, I'm sure you're well aware that portable consoles are a real pain in the butt. Now, are you doing, because you mentioned some of the older games, so there is the possibility that you were doing emulated stuff. Were you doing emulated stuff, or were you dealing with the whole rigmarole of handheld capture?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I first started, I was using emulators, what it was legal based on the leaderboard standards. Yeah. And that was also primarily because I was streaming off a very old and nearly busted laptop at that point. So it's not like I could handle a lot of capture card software anyway with that laptop. But when I started improving my times a lot and I started looking at marathons such as GDQ and the bigger name events that I wanted to be a part of, I realized that emulators are less and less allowed for those bigger events, especially, which makes sense from a legality standpoint. So I decided now it's time to invest in hardware. So I got the GameCube with the Game Boy player, and those cartridges with the replaced battery and all that stuff. It sunk a lot of money into it. Capture card, upgraded my PC as well at that time too. So just kind of went all in, and then I moved and took a long break for a while. Yeah.
With the Game Boy player, this is a really technical in the weeds detail, but I'm curious, so I'm going to do it anyway. It's my podcast. Were you sticking to the default Game Boy player software, or did you get it all into Swiss and using the Game Boy interface software?
I have not messed with GBI at all, personally. I want to, but I never have. I invested in the Game Boy Player disc, which was another, money sink.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah. Any of the weird, GameCube accessories. I mean, I guess the Game Boy Player isn't the component cables, which are truly the devil's costs, but
yeah, and then it's funny because then you think, oh, I'm set. I have this GameCube. I can start streaming using console. Great. Then you start running into other problems, especially with Game Boy Player. All right, so I'll start using this GameCube controller. Well, the D-pad is junk on a GameCube controller, and you're not going to get really precise inputs with that D-pad. So okay, well, I got to invest in some kind of other controller, whether that be using a Game Boy as a controller. Or what I do is I actually have an adapter that allows me to use my PS2 controller as a controller on my GameCube, which is what I use. And then you're like, okay, cool, got the controller set. Then you plug into your TV, and you have to get all these splitters if you want to use an HDMI setup. Great, okay, so you plug into your fancy TV, and now you have a second of input delay, and then you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? Now you invest in a CRT, and then you got, okay, now there's another monitor on my desk.
A big one.
But what I eventually did was I did a lot more research, and I actually got a slightly different GameCube that has the digital AV port in the back, and then I invested in a Carby so I can just hook HDMI directly into that, stream off my monitor, which is really nice.
Yeah, I mean, once you get that set up, it's obviously, as you already mentioned several times, and rightfully so, a chunk of change to get it started. But you know, especially in terms of not needing a CRT or anything like that, it's definitely good. It was funny you mentioned the controller issue, because I recently was going through that myself, because I once in a while I'll stream GBA games. And the solution I ended up going with was I got a cable for converting to a Wii Classic controller.
Oh wow, that's a unique one.
Yeah, well, it ended up being the case where my spouse has a Wii and bought one of these and like barely ever used it, so it's like in pristine condition. And I was like, well, let me just get the cable for it, and you know, it's got a nice D-pad, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say that D-pad's good on that one too. That's an unusual setup, but one that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I mean, the only issue is it's kind of small, but besides that, it's fine. Yeah, it's still bigger than an NES controller, so yeah, I'll take it.
Exactly.
All right. Well, okay. Well, I guess one. I'm just trying to think of where I want to go next, because you already got into the other thing. This is always the hardest part of planning these episodes. Is do I ask how did you get into streaming or how did you get into speedrunning first?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's obvious and sometimes it's not. Like sometimes I just get blindsided. Like I was a professional Street Fighter player for 3 years before speedrunning. Like, oh no.
Yeah.
How did I miss that?
Well, you couldn't go wrong with me because they basically started at the same time, almost very little over like a couple weeks maybe. I streamed without speedrunning.
Let's do some speed game takes then. You've already mentioned that Pokemon Red Glitchless was your first run, and that is your first recorded run, right? Like I don't know if you have VOD still, but like you did record and stream that.
Yes, I recorded and streamed that, and for a while that was the only game I speed ran, probably for a couple of years actually. That was all I ran. You know,
I find that's pretty common. Like that was the case for me. I only ran Just Cause 3 for a few years, and then I like did one other game, and now. You know, and that was like 2019 where I played my second speed game, and now it's 2021 and there's like 30 games on my page. I'm like, oh no.
It just opens the floodgates. Once you realize there's a whole world out there, you don't have to perfect just one game that you care about a lot. Then you're like, oh wow.
Yeah.
You know, I have the world is my oyster.
It really is, though. And of course, new games come out all the time as well. You know, and I think it's something that'll come up for you, and certainly has been true for me as well. Well, speaking of the world being your oyster, of all of the speedruns that you have done, what is your favorite?
Oh boy. So, geez, Pokemon is up there. I still love doing that run every time. That's not something I grind anymore. I'm not trying to grind for a competitive time in that, but I'll bust it out. I'll derust it, and every time I derust it, I'm like, oh man, I forget why I stopped playing this game because I loved it so much. But I think I'll have to go with Bugsnax. Again, this game has completely captured me. And then one of my favorite runs, and I'm sure we might get into it as well, that I did early on was actually Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone for Game Boy Color. One of my favorite games as a child, and it turned out to be a pretty excellent speedrun as well. Yeah, I miss that game quite a bit. Yeah.
What about the flip side, though? What have you done a speedrun of and said, maybe this isn't for me? Maybe I don't need to do this again.
I got two good answers for this one.
All right.
Last year for Christmas, I wanted to pick up a Christmas game because for one reason, I'm a staff member on the No Glitches Allowed team. For that marathon, they always put together a holiday time of year event called No Holidays Allowed, which is kind of like its own open thing. And I was like, this year I want to learn a Christmas game for this and submit to it. So I picked up The Grinch for Game Boy Color. So people have seen The Grinch, usually the PS1, PC, 3D platformer. I picked up The Grinch for Game Boy Color, which is a Pac-Man-like, but also world structure similar to Mario or something like that.
Okay.
But no warps. And it's just such a bad speed run, and it's a good game. I actually suggest people play it because it's fun. It's a fun game, but there's no tech at all to it. There's no warps, so it's not like I can go from world to world easier. I have to just blast through 1-1 all the way to 7-10, by the way. So that means I think there's like 50 something levels. And I sat there and grinded it. No one has ever recorded a run of it. No, I was the only one on the leaderboard to this day. And my world record's somewhere like around 2.5 hours or something like that. But anytime I sit down to play that game, it goes from somewhere between 2 hours to like 3.5 because I can just die over and over again. And then another one which I enjoyed, but I don't like really want to pursue was Disney's Extreme Skating Adventure, which I picked up after my good friend Helix ran it for a GDQ. I bought it immediately after, ran it a couple times, did a 12-hour challenge of it actually, and I was like, all right, this game is fun, but like I don't want to. This isn't something I want to pursue. Skateboarding games are not for me.
That's really funny to me. I have a speed friend, Tapioca, who's done some extreme sports runs.
Yeah.
He did Razor Freestyle Scooter, I think, at AGDQ 2020, which is if you don't, are you familiar at all with that one? Or
I saw that run. I was at AGDQ 2020, so I watched it there. Yeah.
Good. No, that's excellent. That's him running. That was partially my fault because we did a set of blind races, and then that was one of the games, and he just was like, "Oh no, I got to keep doing this."
that one captured him, huh?
That one got him.
That one
games. He couldn't resist. Continue with that one. Oh, that's good though. I don't know. I think I say this a lot on this podcast. There's definitely, I feel, genres of underappreciated speedruns. And I say that even for things that are really popular, but like things for like horror, Souls games, extreme sports, I definitely think is one of them. And I think it's getting more love all the time. I know the last AGDQ, I think it was it Big Law who had some Tony Hawk stuff that I think popped off in a big way.
Yeah, that one was
really
cool. Good. Yeah. They had the re-release, the Pro Skater re-release run as well.
1+2,
Party Man did that. That was great. I could not agree more. Like especially skateboarding games. I've watched some other ones like the Razor Scooter one, but especially skateboarding speedruns are just so incredible to watch for me. But inputting them with my hands, no, thank you. It's not for me. It's not for me.
It's intense. It absolutely is intense.
Yeah.
How about
so cool to watch?
A game that you would like to speedrun, but you have not gotten around to it yet, either for time reasons or it just doesn't fit with what you're doing right now?
Yeah. I have a couple of things that are on the horizon for me. I really want to learn a Star Wars game of some sort.
That's a big universe.
It's a big universe and tons of games. Yeah. Some games that, but I kind of want to do something quirky and weird. That, the Star Wars games that aren't as popular to run. Not too long ago on stream, I did a casual playthrough of Star Wars Obi-Wan for the OG Xbox.
Okay, yeah.
Which is a game that not a lot of people realize ever was made, even. Especially if you've seen Episode 1 of Star Wars, Obi-Wan doesn't do any of like the cool stuff besides the end. And whenever Qui-Gon is in Tatooine and finds Anakin, he's just on the ship.
He's on the ship the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just sitting there. So like Anakin doesn't pop up in this, Jar Jar doesn't pop up in this. It's a bizarre game, but it could be fun. I might do some. I also wanted to play through the Episode 3 movie game, which might be pretty cool.
Oh god, that actually came up recently. Oh, you know what it was? This is going to be really roundabout, but I think the reason I saw that game was because I was looking into the. I recently watched. Are you a Star Trek fan at all?
Not as much for Star Trek. Big Star Wars fan, but don't know much about Star Trek.
There was a Deep Space Nine game done in the Unreal Engine, like circa 2001, 2002. That's actually like a pretty playable game, and I think it was the same studio that did the Revenge of the Sith video game. Yeah, it's called the Collective. Yeah. That's okay. So this is why I saw it. I heard this one's actually pretty okay.
I had it as a kid, and I remember loving it. So I hope I haven't played it since then, and I have a copy of it, but I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet. I mean, I'm thinking maybe for May the 4th, just celebrate it all day, play a good Star Wars game on the stream. But yeah, I want something in the Star Wars vein. I'd love to get a run in.
God, I'm sorry. I just got distracted by this company's like backlog of games. I'm gonna do this real quick. It's so hilarious. 98 Men in Black the game for PS1. 2000 Deep Space Nine for PC. 2002 Buffy the Vampire Slayer. 2003 Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb. 2004 Wrath Unleashed. 2005 Revenge of the Sith. And then Mark Echo's Getting Up, which is a graffiti game if you don't know what that is. The Da Vinci Code.
I had that game as a kid too. Weirdly enough, had it. 2K, I think produced it or something.
Yeah. 2K was the publisher. Yeah.
Publisher, yeah.
And then a canceled Dirty Harry game. Feeling lucky.
How did it get canceled? They had such a good track record.
I don't know, right? That seems like a pretty good for a studio putting out license game after license game. I feel like they put out some pretty good ones there. I have to say.
Yeah.
How about
maybe down? I'm about to play that Da Vinci Code game, I think.
Right? Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. Why not? Right? Why not do that? Did you have any other ones that you wanted to? Because you were doing mention of some Star Wars games. I don't know if you had any other speedruns on the horizon.
Yeah, I recently got a 3DS capture card. So I'm kind of exploring. I don't know what I'm going to do for that yet, but I'm exploring options for that. Maybe a new Pokemon game that I haven't run before, or some options there. And then I kind of want to do a 3D platformer of sorts. Again, not entirely confident in my platforming abilities, but I've looked at like Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated or Pumpkin Jack or something like that. I haven't fully weighed anything out, but always in the back of my head, I was like, maybe I should look into that a little bit more.
I watched a Pumpkin Jack run when I interviewed Jaxler, and that's a hot game. That game goes places.
Yeah, that's got some tech in there. Yeah, I've been watching Jaxler do that run too, which has kind of led me more and more towards potentially learning that at some point.
How about your favorite speedrun to watch that you have no plans to run yourself?
Ooh, yeah, there's a few good ones here. I think Jack and Daxter, the first one, is a really great one of my favorite speedruns to watch. Various categories, really, really interesting. But never will run it for sure. Definitely don't have the skills required. I also would really love to run Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, but it's just so long. Really cool run, a lot of really fascinating tech. Even in the glitchless stuff, there's a lot of fascinating things that happen in that run, but it's so long, and I just don't have between working and home life. I usually can only stream for like a few hours at a time. I don't have 6 hours to do a run on any given day, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I hear that. That's my life, is like I'm only ever streaming for 3 hours. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't do more than that.
Same.
All right, so the last game specific question I'm going to ask here in terms of like pick a game. Of course, we are in the magical time period between the closure of SGDQ 21 submissions and the actual games list dropping, I think on May 17th, I want to say, is when the last I checked the page. And,
sounds right.
And I see here that you have submitted 5 games. Yeah, it looks like 5 games. You submitted 5 games in 2 categories, of course, for Bugsnax, as you already mentioned. If you could pick just one speedrun, automatic, you get in, which one would you want to get in?
It's Bugsnax. It's Bugsnax for me.
Which category of Bugsnax?
No major skips is more fun, I think. So any percent is broken. We just there's so many skips and things to do, early load zones and all that. Really, really fun. But it's just so short. Like the world record for console is below 16 and a half minutes. So it's really quick, and it doesn't require a lot of tech. Once you learn the skips, you just have the skips and you hope that you do them fast. That's all that you do in the speedrun. No major skips has a lot of cool, we get to explore a lot of cool like techniques for capturing Bugsnax, or like unusual ways to capture them that the game doesn't intend for you to do. You get to see every area in the game, which it has beautiful set pieces. You get to see more bugs, you get to capture more bugs, which are all cute and stuff like that. So yeah, it's Bugsnax with a caveat, very close second when we haven't talked about this game yet. Cartoon Summer Resort. I'm gonna plug this game. All right, that's one of my submissions. 15-minute estimate. It is a game from the Cartoon Network website back in 2000, I believe. Really fun. I played it a ton as a kid, and that was one of the things I picked up early when I was looking up for new speedruns, because I wanted to see if there was even a way to play this game anymore.
I was about to ask that. How do you play this game in 2021?
Well, as it was a Flash Shockwave game on the website. So as we know, recently Flash is not supported at all anymore, and Shockwave hasn't been supported for years anyway. Luckily enough, there is a program that's called Flashpoint. It's developed by Blue Maxima, and it was created as a Flash game preservation program. So some other members of the speedrunning community even have been involved with it, such as like Tasselfoot and stuff like that, and helping develop and curate games lists for it. And basically, it's just people getting the code from these websites from back in the day using Wayback Machine or something like that, saving the code and then uploading them to this program. and that's how I play the games. I use Flashpoint, which I think is a really cool way. I mean, that was one of my main concerns with Flash going away, is that not only countless videos that we can no longer watch, countless games are now just lost and we cannot be preserved. But this program has done an excellent job of preserving. It's got to be thousands of titles, thousands, which is really, really great.
That's one of the cool things I think about the preservation of Flash is that, I mean, you have some big things that are licensed like this, but also I feel like a lot of people have like their Flash game that they remember from that period of time. And you're seeing so many of them, even if they had a small audience, they're, you know, getting collected in these libraries, which has been really, really neat to see. And that would be cool. I don't know. Do you know off the top of your head if GDQ has had a Flash game before?
So I know, I think so. I had one of my friends, I have Newt. She ran a Super Fancy Pants adventure for AGDQ 2020, which I don't think itself was a Flash game, but it was based off of a Flash series.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think if they were there, they would probably be in an awful or silly block. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, no, that would be the place to find them, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen games like that. Like I'm thinking back at 2019, there was that Laffy Taffy game that somebody ran. I don't know if that was a Flash game or it was like a free in the cereal box kind of download. But
I guess Chex Quest has been to GDQ, right?
Right, yeah.
That's not a Flash game, but that is a cereal box game.
I feel like it's in the same category, same niche. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure if any have been, none off the top of my head, full Flash game run.
I mean, that'd be very cool. I mean, certainly, I'm rooting for Bugsnax because that is a game I think that was well received, popular. And of course, would love to see a run of it there. And then also, I love weird stuff. I love jank stuff. I mean, a lot of what I do tends to be like weird Windows 98 things. So yeah, certainly a big fan of that. All right, well, let's move to the a thing I want to highlight. And you mentioned this earlier. I had a feeling, I had a suspicion, but I was unable to confirm it. That you do some work helping out marathons running. Yeah. You mentioned that you're a staffer for No Glitches Allowed. Are there any other marathons that you work with, and also like what do you do for the marathon? Like what's your role? What activity are you engaged in?
Yeah. So starting with No Glitches Allowed, I'm actually their head of hosting. So I do a lot of hosting for marathons whenever I volunteer. So I've hosted for the Midwest Speed Fest events across, they do 4 events a year based on the season. So I've done a lot of hosting and I've done social media work for them. I've done hosting for Calathon at a few different events. I've also done hosting for Speed Docs. They've only done a couple events so far, but I've also helped out with their videos and stuff a lot on their various YouTube series. And then I got to do a small hosting block at this most recent AGDQ actually as well. I hosted Mario Land 2 and 3 that they did. Excellent. So it's mainly hosting is where I tend to gravitate. But I work in my real life. I work as a social media and content specialist. Okay. So I do a lot of social media work in my real life, and I tend to carry that over to marathon work as well. So helping manage socials and doing tweets during the events and stuff like that.
That's interesting that you're able to, it's one of those things where if it comes up, of course I'm happy to share how that connects into your real life. I for professional reasons, I usually don't get into what I do on the stream, but so it's interesting. So the one thing I guess that I worry about, you have a literal sense of like the value of your work. And I mean that in like in a dollar sense, because again, you do that in a professional capacity. Yeah. How does that like affect you, like volunteering that effort? Because I would worry 2 things, right? Like one is that like, do you get sick of it, right? Like, do you want to just turn off the music when you get home? And then the other thing is like, at what point does an organization need to? Obviously, most of these organizations are charity organizations and speedrunning, so this is like less of a big deal. I would assume, but you're the professional. You tell me.
Yeah. So It's kind of exactly what you said. What motivates me to continue to volunteer for doing that, the social media side of the volunteer work that I do, is that I just passionate about using gaming for good. I want to use this passion that I have to help people, and that because I have skills in this field, I like to utilize those for volunteering. I do more hosting than I do social media work. Because of that, I want to turn off the music when I get home mentality. I do like to switch. So if there's something else I can do to volunteer, which is why I've gotten into hosting and podcasting and stuff like that, and interviews. I've done some interviewing as well. I will choose to do that over social media. But if they don't need it, I'll do social media too. I'm glad to help.
No, I don't do the hosting auditions for SGDQ. Did those already happen? Have you submitted hosting stuff at this point for SGDQ? Or, assuming you did apply.
I did apply.
Okay.
Volunteer submissions are closed, but the audition videos don't have to be turned in yet.
Okay.
So I have yet to record mine, but I'll probably be doing it in maybe the next day or two because they're due end by the 28th. So, but I will be doing my audition for this coming SGDQ as well.
Cool. No, yeah. I mean, I've had a few people on, who've done that, like Enigma, Musical Daredevil, etc. And they seem to really love it. Like they're just, they seem to love doing the hosting and always seem eager to do more. And of course, that kind of hype MC work, I just feel I didn't always appreciate at first how essential it was, but the more runs, especially that I do myself in marathons, the more I grow to appreciate the work the host does. Yeah.
It's funny that you say that. So I hosted Calathon's past event, which was this last weekend, their Stand Strong event, which was in support of Stop AAPI Hate. I hosted the finale, which got pushed back by hours due to technical issues. So it started at like 2 a.m. my time, I think. And we had an incentive that we wanted to meet to do a glitch exhibition at the end of this 3-hour run. And, it's in the middle of the night. There's not as many people donating. There's not as many people in chat. But it's all about just pushing, getting the energy up, getting people excited, getting people wanting to extend, this experience. And even at that, in just wild hour, we were able to extend it by this much by getting that glitch exhibition and all those donations. And every little bit helps for organizations like that. So.
No, absolutely, especially for was this event organized in response to the
Atlanta,
the assault in Atlanta? Okay.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was announced probably days after they organized it, very shortly, and then they got it together.
Good. I mean, I'm glad to see. I know I want to say I did raid that at some point after doing an episode of OverBoost. I think whoever my guest was, I forget. I forget now. It might have been. Was that 2 weeks ago or last week? Oh, I had
last week. So it was Bobby, right?
It was Bobby. I had Bobby on. Yeah. That's right. We rated.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, damn. I know. Was it last week? Yeah, it was Bobby. We definitely rated Calathon after that, and I think it was a Pokemon card game on the time. It was very good. All right. Let's. Okay. So now that we have brought up your day job, if the day job gets brought up, I am required by law to ask this question, which is, have you found yourself applying principles of speedrunning to your professional work? Are you optimizing your tools or anything like that?
1,000%.
1,000%.
Emphatically, yes. Because a lot of what I do is mainly monitoring, checking, and responding to social media accounts. A lot of times I will just try to fly through checks and get through things as fast as I can. I'm always been like a hurry up and wait kind of person. So I'll get it all done, take a nice little break, get it all done, take a nice little break, check in every half hour or an hour or so. I'm always work hard and then rest hard as well. So, I optimize my checks. I make sure when I'm opening tabs, I'm doing so in a way that I don't have to like double click on tabs. I get them all out as fast as possible, quickly check my emails, sort them. Yeah, it's good. It's taken over not even my work life, my regular, just daily life. I just want to get stuff done fast. That
happens to me too all the time now. Whenever I drive, I'm always talking about cycles and traffic lights.
Yeah. Oh man, late cycle. I got the red light out the door. Oh man.
It's a good thing that my spouse knows I stream, because otherwise she would not understand half the crap that I say.
Yeah, I say some of this stuff to my partner as well, and sometimes it gets a laugh and sometimes it gets a look.
Yeah, like what is this about?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, let's do some good health takes. One, of course, one of the regular questions that I ask is, I mean, it sounds like you're at a desk a lot between doing social media stuff and doing streaming and speedrunning.
Yep.
Especially, you know, if you're up late for a marathon. Are there any preventative measures that you take in regards to hand wrist health, or also just being sedentary and sitting down a lot?
Yeah, I wish I did more for the sedentary part, but I truthfully don't. I am a naturally sedentary person. I just like to sit and lay down a lot. I should do more in regards to that. But in terms of work, I oftentimes when I do my checks, I don't just like then stay at my desk until the next check comes along. I'm getting up, I'm moving around a little bit, even if it's just the walk over to the couch from the desk or something like that. And I do a lot for my hand health to keep things, from, getting carpal tunnel or things like that, which can happen a lot in speedrunning, especially if you have mash heavy sequences or things like that. So I do a lot of hand stretches in between runs or in between segments. And I often try to warm up before streaming if I can as well. I don't like to go cold right into a very intense sequence of speedrunning. I like to try to do something a little bit easier on the hands, not only get acquainted with the game so I'm not going in cold and playing poorly, but making it so that I'm not going in and hurting myself and straining myself right away.
Yeah, no, that's all very, very sound. Especially the warming up part. I find myself more and more wanting to do like a very slow, like few levels off stream before, if I'm diving into speedrunning right away. I think more and more that's like very good advice, especially if you have, text mashing or something, which I think, I want to say, was it? I definitely feel like I saw. Bugsnax. Does the Bugsnax have some text mashing?
Yes,
yeah,
a lot. It has a lot of mashing. Unfortunately, that's so I play on the console version of Bugsnax. And the PC version is ever so slightly faster. Not only because they can do loadless times, but because they can bind text mashing to their mouse wheel. So they get insane text speed without having to try really. Whereas I'm on console and just trying to mash my heart out in order to save 2 seconds across a run.
Did the PC side of things have a big the big free scroll discussion that happens sometimes, or?
No, not in this community. At least
okay.
I've seen that in other communities, but not this one.
Some people are super mad about free scrolling, and I've never really encountered it because all the games I run are too small. But
yeah, I think part of it was because you can bind it straight from the game's menu. You don't have to do like any weird workarounds and things like that. So they're like, well, as long as the developers intended for you to do something like that, then we're fine with it too. I think it was just the general mentality. But I've been in some other communities that have PC ports where, if you want to bind it to the mouse wheel, you have to kind of circumvent. You can't just do it straight from the game settings and stuff like that. And that becomes questionable as to whether or not that should be allowed or not. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes with weird PC ports, you can get in sort of like a weird like badge of honor situation. One of the games that I run, True Crime New York City, does not allow rebinding of controls, and I have just stuck with the default controls, which is like roughly like using Emacs. You ever doing any programming?
No, unfortunately not. Yeah.
Emacs is infamous for everything being like at least like 3 or 4 keys at once to like do like a certain command. It'll be like Control Shift E, or something like that.
Right.
And playing True Crime is sort of like that on PC, where it's like if you hit Control Shift A left click to get a certain punch. It's very funny. But yeah, I mean but as always, community driven decisions. If it turns out having a utility to change the binds is the only way to make the game fun for the people interested in running it, like, please do it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm usually pro making a game more runnable, regardless of what that takes. The big example I think of is Bioshock Infinite, and getting that mod where I haven't run it myself, but
Hill Runner hat, is that what it is?
Yeah, some kind of hat that it's like like single percentile drop, but it like makes or breaks the run. Make it so that you get it all the time. Let's have fun with the speedrun, please.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think of that time skip mod and Dead Rising series games is like same thing, or just like Do you want do you want to run where you have to stand around and do nothing for minutes, or like do you want, you know, you just go and you just go. You want to just go.
Yeah, exactly.
You mentioned controllers earlier, so of course I'm going to do favorite, least favorite controllers.
Yes. Okay. I really like. I haven't experimented with the Series X or S controllers, but I really liked the Xbox One controller quite a bit. So I've used that quite a bit. I actually really, I'm in the minority on this. I know. I really liked like the PS2 through PS4 style controllers. Like I said, with my Game Boy playing, I use a PlayStation controller. And I know the D-pad's not awesome, but I actually, for some reason, I have a preference to it. So I'm pretty inclined to lean that direction. And the Switch Pro controller is probably up there as well. Really, really, really solid controller.
I find what's interesting about your DualShock takes isn't that you're a fan of them. Like I've had people on this show who are very much for one of the DualShock specifically, and then they'll turn around and be very against another one, right? Like they will love DualShock 4, hate DualShock 2. Or, you know, love DualShock 1, hate DualShock 3. And that's interesting to me. I would be more inclined to do what you're doing and group them a little bit more. But I mean, there are differences. They aren't all the same. It is true.
Yeah. It's all like, for example, I don't think I would want to do Game Boy speedruns with the DualSense, the PS5 controller, because that D-pad, while very cool, it doesn't feel as solid. You know, I don't feel like I could be as precise with my inputs. Especially in games like Pokemon, where you have to be very input precise for certain manipulations and stuff like that. But DualShocks 2, 3, even 4, like that D-pad on there, I feel like I can be as precise as really any like Game Boy D-pad or SNES D-pad, which I used a lot before when I was running on emulator.
Do you have a favorite D-pad?
Boy. My favorite D-pad would be the SP if it was a little bigger, just ever so slightly bigger. Like that's the main reason I like a vast majority of Pokemon speedrunners, especially who run Gens 1 through 3, they will use the SP as the controller. And I would love to, but it's just too small in my hands. I can't get there. But that D-pad is incredibly responsive. Like just so good. Very, very, you know, I really like a nice click down with it. D-pad's great for that, but it's just too small. I'll often fat thumb in between two directions, and I just don't want to do it. But for ones that I actually would use, probably SNES, probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, no, that's fair. What about least favorite, though?
It's GameCube. I mean, that D-pad is just absolute junk. I can't. One notable speedrunner, Keysron, uses a GameCube controller for his Pokemon speedrunning. And I can't. I could never do it. It's just, it's so clunky. It's tiny. It almost functions like it has 8 axes on a D-pad, which is just so strange to me.
Yeah, don't want that.
Yeah, no, I never, ever will use that D-pad. It's a great controller for, you know, like Monkey Ball or something like that, where you use the stick and you have the notches and things like that. So great for that, but we'll never use that D-pad.
Yeah, no, I'm inclined to agree with you. I feel like the GameCube controller is definitely the best of times and the worst of times.
Yeah, that's for sure.
All right, let's you know what, I wanted to get to this now. You mentioned earlier that a important speedrun for you in your early going were some of the Harry Potter games. I know 2 of the VODs that you sent me were Harry Potter and the Philosopher Stone for Game Boy Color, and also Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban for Game Boy Advance. Let's start this discussion kind of at the end, because you know this thing with old licensed games and sort of the legacy of the license attached to them. You let me know that it's your decision that you kind of left off from running these games because of the situation with the author, JK, being transphobic, and especially in light of, you know, how intense transphobic sentiment has become. I think in the past years, it feels like to me reading the news, you know, it's probably always been that way, and I just haven't known. But you want to give me a little insight into your story of you know, when did you decide to make that break and just some of the background of what was going on there.
Yeah. So as I had mentioned, I started when I started my speedrunning career, I wanted to glom onto games that I had a strong personal attachment to in my childhood, and that started with the Game Boy Color version of Sorcerer's Stone, Philosopher's Stone. So that was the second game I ever learned to start speedrunning, and I put a ton of time into it. And then it was kind of in the midst of the pandemic lockdown that I always was familiar with J.K. Rowling's exclusionary comments towards trans folk, but like she just starts doubling and tripling and quadrupling down with these essays and combativeness against other people of note, and as I continued to grow as a streamer and as a person, and continued to get more and more friends and loved ones in my community and in my life that identify as trans, it just became impossible to ignore and impossible to continue to support in any form, even if it's just streaming a game on your channel. So what we did was, when all this stuff was coming out, myself and a sizable number of my friends, some of which were trans, created for now, we'll see if we get to do it more later, but for now, a one-off event that we called the Trans Life is Magical, or Trans Lives Are Magical Marathon, where we did it was an all Harry Potter speedrunning marathon in support of Trans Lifeline. We did that as a direct response to her essay, I believe, at the time. And so I helped organize and produce that event. And then after that event is when I kind of decided that I can't continue putting this game, even, as I didn't support it directly. I bought these games off of eBay, but I can't have impressionable eyes or people's eyes on my stream seeing that I might potentially support something like this or these viewpoints. And I just decided, after talking with a lot of people around me, and just a lot of self-reflection, that I had to just cut it there. I can't continue to market even for something like this. And I haven't run. That was in September, and I haven't touched the games since, unfortunately. But the games are great. The games themselves are really good, especially the ones I run. They're RPGs, which you never would expect for Harry Potter, but they're Final Fantasy like even. So they're really, really fun games with a lot of really cool tech. But yeah, I just can't bring myself to put that on my page anymore. With everyone that I know and everyone in my life at this point, I just can't support it.
Yeah, no, and I definitely, respect that decision. I understand. I couldn't imagine being in, sort of a similar situation where you have something that you really put a lot of time and work into. And, as you mentioned, it wasn't like J.K. Rowling, developed a Game Boy Color RPG in the style of Final Fantasy. And, like, this is, but the legacy is there, the perception is there. And certainly with it as it is now, I'm not going to put you under the gun to answer a question like this, but like, certainly I almost would hope that maybe somehow, she gets disconnected from it or something like that, like a George Lucas, sold Star Wars to Disney. That would be great, but we'll see what happens. I certainly I would hope there would be a situation where people can continue to enjoy these games, but at the same time, of course, supporting our trans friends is important, and definitely takes priority. So that
people ask that in my chat a lot, actually. That sentiment you brought up, like what would, if anything, ever bring you back? And it would be if she was somehow completely detached from this franchise going forward, George Lucas. She sold it off, or whatever the case may be. However, I could stop putting money in her pockets, from even if it's just putting eyes on these games. That's what would bring me back.
Yeah, no, I mean, that seems like a safe way to approach it. And so so you had done. Were you mostly just like an RPG Harry Potter speedrunner? You didn't do any of the PS1 platformers or anything like that?
Nope. I didn't do any of those for the speedruns. I only ran the handheld RPGs, which are, they're very good games. They're really, really solid. Kryptonite Games is the studio that made them. since defunct, unfortunately. But they made a lot of really good, similar to the Collective, a lot of really good movie ports that you wouldn't have expected to be so good, and they turned out great. So I wish they were around. And I'm constantly looking for games in that same kind of vein, nice short RPGs that with interesting mechanics that would scratch the same itch, you know.
Do you feel like is your search specifically in the time period, like on these consoles? Is it for more licensed games, or do you also look at indie games trying to get this kind of itch scratched?
I've been looking more and more at indie games as of late. For a while, my focus was really on handheld games, just as a whole. And I really liked the Game Boy era handheld games, so I was really focused on Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance. So that's where our focus has been a lot. But, you know, with Bugsnax coming out, it's really opened my eyes to a lot of more indie titles. And it's kind of led me to a few other games that I might consider playing in the future, and then if they grab me, you know, speedrunning them as well.
No, that's discovering a new game and discovering the speed potential for the game is always very, very fun. Before we get in, we're going to get into some of the other games that you run in a hot second, but I want to ask some maybe one or two more general questions. One of the questions I like to ask is, for you, is there a central point or appeal of speedrunning? And when I'm asking that, I'm asking, like, is it about the competition with yourself or with others? Do you just like learning the glitches and exploits in the game? What would be the point or appeal of speedrunning for you personally?
Really? So there is a small competition aspect, mainly with myself. Sometimes there's a little bit of like friendly leaderboard competition. I'm never one that's like bloodthirsty. Like I once a record is beaten, I have to get it back and things like that. That's not really my personality. So there's a little bit of the competitive aspect. But my mind is constantly focused on, if I want to speedrun a game, what would it be like in a marathon setting? I'm just so passionate about running in marathons that I look at a speed game and I look at its marathon potential. If it's overshown versus not shown at all, or if it's, you know, new versus old, or if this is interesting to watch for not only my community but marathon community, people who would support these charities. So I constantly look at its marathon and showcase potential. It's probably the number one thing.
So do you feel like that often means, I mean, so we already talked that you have a time limit in terms of streaming.
Yeah.
But do you feel that your interest in marathons also maybe causes you to shy away from runs that are longer as well?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I part of it, if there are like very famous franchises, you know, like Final Fantasy runs famously long but famously popular. Pokemon runs, same thing. Part of me is like, oh, that would be great for a marathon. I don't have the time. But a lot of it is, you know, like, oh, this is a cool run. It's 4 hours. That's never going to get into a marathon. I'll probably pass, you know, if I'm leaning one direction or another. Now, if it's something that I get really passionate about, like, then I'll still start, you know, to learn some part of it at least, that I can showcase. For example, like the Pokemon Sword and Shield runs are 4 hours and change long, and I don't know the full runs, but they have DLC. So I've learned to do one of the DLC runs, which is you know, my PB is an hour and a half, which is, you know, that's doable. Mm-hmm. You know, I'll find ways around things if I can to make it still marketable, if I can.
No, folks, don't sleep on DLC campaigns. I mean, that's how I got Just Cause 3 to AGDQ, was I did a DLC category. So never sleep on those. Those can be very, very useful.
Mm-hmm. And then if you ever learn those full games in the future, you great incentives. You know, hey, you want to tack on some DLC for some donations? Why not?
Here you go. Yeah. Now, okay, so let's talk about Grim Fandango, because you've done that at a bunch of different events. As I said, I watched in preparation for this. I watched the run you did for the Bargain Bin, one of the GDQ hotfix shows. How did you? Was this a game that you had played as a kid way back in '98, or was this something you came to more recently?
Actually, I did not play. This is a unique one. I did not play this as a kid. I actually. One of the podcasts I listened to, which is actually a D&D podcast, but they happened to bring up Grim Fandango off the cuff one day. And I was like, oh, that kind of, you know, they talked a little bit about it, you know, being set in the Aztec-based land of the dead and stuff like that. And in the but being more of a noir theme, the concept of it intrigued me. So I went on my Switch, saw that it was like $10 or something like that, very affordable. I was like, all right, let's try it. Played through it with my fiance on the couch. And we just loved it. We loved the story, the voice acting, the music, the set pieces. It was great. And whenever I'm captured by a game, the next thing I do is I go to speedrun.com and I look at the leaderboards and I see if there are guides and communities based around them and stuff like that. And this is a game that doesn't have like a community, really. It's somewhat active on the leaderboards in terms of it has like 15 or so people on there. Not a lot of active runners, no Discord, no guides or anything like that. So I put a lot of time into, making my own notes, finding my own little guides and paths to optimize this run, even beyond what the world record had at the time. And yeah, I fell in love with it. I had to move over to PC to do this because any console version of this game, you can't skip cutscenes for some reason. Or at least a lot of cutscenes. And a lot of key animations. So you're losing 15-20 minutes just by running on console. So I moved over to the PC version and then just kind of took it from there.
So now, at this point, do you have future plans for this one? It seems like this is at least the marathon workhorse for you. In terms of the time, and it looks like there is not really. This is just a 90% game. There's not alternate categories for this one.
No.
Do you have future goals in terms of times for this one, or is this just really like I want to perfect the marathon performance?
It's mainly marathon based. I'd like to get my time. So I'm second place on the leaderboard. The thing is, I don't know anything about it. I'd like to get a load remover for this somehow. I don't know how to make one. I don't know what goes into making one. But I think there's going to be a gap between PCs because we don't load remove. We just time RTA with this game. So I think that would help close the gap for getting people interested in running this game. I'd like to get more people involved in the community. I'd like to get a Discord going so people can ask questions, post resources, things like that. And then I think improve my time a little bit, at least get closer to the world record if I never get it, just because there's such a large gap in between myself and the world record holder. I think part of that is load times. Just we'll have to time it out, but yeah, just to improve ever so slightly would be nice.
Yeah, those kinds of tool things, being someone who's done quite a few PC speedruns of varying popularity, you get the whole range of load removers, auto splitters, so forth and so on. And I know some of the technical technical behind the scenes because I have a technical background, but I've never really done it myself because I would prefer to run more games than than to actually improve the quality of life for the games that I do run, which maybe is not the best approach. But but it's definitely I don't know. It's easier than I would say it's easier than maybe you think it is, but it also depends on the game, which is always kind of the issue. Is that especially for modern releases, because it's a matter of hooking into something that is an indicator that the game is loading.
Yeah, and via visual or something.
Right.
Yeah.
It could be an icon, it could be text, it could be anything. Just something that flips in memory that can be read by the by LiveSplit, since that's the program that's doing all this. And that can be really easy and that can be really hard. It tends to be easier for older games, tends to be harder for newer games. Although I think people are getting more used to dealing with Unity and things like that. I'm not a tool maker though, so don't let me give you anything for certain. But I know I've been fortunate to be on the receiving end. So hopefully, maybe someone will want to speedrun Grim Fandango that can help you out with that.
Yeah, and it's funny to talk about the hotfix show as well. So I did that hotfix show in January. And one of the live tweets, like the tweets that GameStuckWick just puts out that's saying, talking about the event, got the attention of one of the original developers of Grim Fandango. And then I got to talk to him a little bit about it and get perspective on the game and things like that as well. So I know that there's a following behind it. I just think we need to make a community behind that following.
Sure.
And just, kind of latch on and get some more runners in here.
Speaking of Double Fine, have you ever watched that video where Tim Schafer and a bunch of people sit down and watch a Psychonaut speedrun?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I would love that though. Double Fine is one of my favorite studios. So
maybe DM me after this. Remind me to go find it. It is hysterical because they all sit down in the same room, like in like a little theater in an office, and watch this guy go through the run. And it's probably an out of date run at this point of Psychonauts, but like still skipping substantial parts of the game. And Tim Schafer will be like, "Whose fault was that?" You know, and they're good sports about it, so it's not like anything aggressive. But
that's great. That's great. The developer I talked to said that their team, the fastest member to ever do the run, like when it was in development, did it in like 2 hours and change. Okay. And for reference, we do it in just over an hour. It's just tough. It's a very sequential game, so it's not. We'd have to find big sequence breaks in order to skip things, and it's very narrative driven, so it's tough to find those skips. So it's mainly just get to the end by solving puzzles the fastest and skipping animations and stuff like that.
Now, when you came to the run, you mentioned there really wasn't too much in the way of explicit resources or guides or things like that to help you learn. Have you had an effect at all in terms of improving the route since you came to the game?
A little bit. I would say more people have had a bigger effect, truthfully. But yeah, I helped fine tune some of the routing. Found that the world record at the time, which has been it's now like the 4th place run or something like that. Just had like a little bit of unnecessary parts that you don't have to include, but the game makes you think you should have to include them. So it's just about like finding out that you don't need certain you don't need these things in your inventory to progress and things like that. So I would fine tune that a little bit, but the biggest find actually was the current world record holder found out that if you turn off the voice lines, just turn them off, you save like 45 seconds throughout the run. And that is mainly because there are a couple cutscenes that you can't skip or mash through. So if the dialogue is going on voice lines, that means they have to play out completely. Yes. But if you just have the voice lines off, the text just has to be read and flipped off, which saves tons of time.
See, this is really funny. Earlier today on Twitter, I saw a Sekiro runner, a little Aggie, tweeting that they discovered if you turn off subtitles, it saves like a second in every cutscene that they're mashing through.
Yeah.
But also things like voice lines, like this is the sort of stuff that a lot of speedrunning, like when we think of glitch finding or things like that, we think of very flashy things, big sequence breaks, stuff like that. But a lot of this documentation of the basics is really important. I'm going to bring it up again. It's a favorite game of mine. It is my choice to get into GDQ. If anyone from GDQ is watching this, True Crime New York City. My good friend KZ Frew discovered that if you turn off voice volume in the audio mix, it makes it so that the lines don't play at all, and it speeds up cutscenes, and it saves 8 minutes over the course of the run. And that's like an hour-long run. So
wow. 8% of the run gone just for one setting.
Gone. It's part of that too is that there's, I shouldn't be laughing. It's because of what I'm about to just describe. Part of the game that happens repeatedly is an interrogation mini game where you get a suspect in your police custody hands, and you hit them until they tell you what you want. Again, not great.
Not great. Yeah.
But turning off voice volume makes it go really fast, which again, a little bit slapstick, not great.
Yeah.
But it does make it go fast. So, it's stuff like that that really. These are all examples: turning off subtitles, turning off voice lines. Just look at the options menu. Just for any game, you just mentioned Grim Fandango. Just do it, and you never know what you're gonna find. It's always something out there.
Yeah, another good example of that, and another reason why the PC version is really the most optimal is so that's if those who are unfamiliar with Grim Fandango as a whole, it's mainly a point and click adventure and puzzle game. So obviously there's the point and click aspect with your mouse, right? But you can also use movement controls on your keyboard instead of pointing and clicking. And if you click to go through a transition point, but then right as you're about to go into it, you switch to moving with the keys, it will skip a lot of this weird animation where you just transition into a new era and you have to look around for a second before you start being able to move. So if I had to guess, it probably saves 40 seconds throughout the run, just being able to move through transitions and not having to stop and look around for a little bit. Just little things like that.
Man, it's really interesting to me to hear, because I feel like a lot of people would look at a point and click speed run and be like, oh, this is just knowing what to do. This is just mashing through text. But I think it's fascinating, and Grim Fandango is a good example of this, where there's just like a dash of movement in there.
Yes.
And it really does a lot to make it an engaging speedrun.
Yeah, it's so different than other point and click adventure games that I've seen, because like you said, it has that dash of movement and animation skips and things that we can get around. It also has some RNG actually in there, because there are things like, for example, towards the end of the run, you have to get up to the mob boss's kind of lair, for lack of a better term, or penthouse office is more accurate probably. You have to answer a question from his henchman. And the answer is a number, and the number is behind you on like a bingo board. The answer is different every time, and you can only get to the answer by scrolling, like by mouse clicking. And there's 30, I think 1 through 34 is the choices. So if you get 4, that's great. You get to stay on the first page and click it. You get 32, you have to scroll for like 5 seconds to get to 32, and then click it. So there are pieces of RNG. There are cycles to be missed, or else you're gonna have to wait for things. There's a lot more tech than you can even realize by looking at the game. That's why I think it would be such a good showcase, because it's a point and click adventure game. It's a classic. It's a LucasArts classic. But it has tech to it, and there's a lot to explain here. So I think it would be really fascinating in this showcase.
Yeah, no, it definitely. I can see why, obviously you're talking about and do commentary, but I can see why you're excited about it. And then it's got stuff to work with. It's a nice length, et cetera, et cetera. Well, okay, let's talk about Bugsnax. When did Bugsnax first cross your radar? What made you say, I'm going to pick this up?
Well, kind of. It crossed my radar before the PlayStation 5 came out, because I saw trailers and things like that. And as somebody who wanted to get a PS5 right away, I was like, all right, what's going to be out at launch? What can I play right away? Beyond Miles Morales, because who's not playing that? But Bugsnax was not only out on release, it was free on release if you had PlayStation Plus. So I was like, great, and then I'm big into like voice acting and the voice acting community as well. So many great voice acting names that are in that game that people probably wouldn't even realize. So it has stellar performances in voice acting. And then I played it and I was like, oh, this is going to be something that's cute that I'll run through, and then, great. But I didn't fully it captured me so incredibly hard. For whatever reason, it has wonderful LGBTQIA plus representation in it, which I didn't expect at all. It has extensive like side story quests and stuff like that. You get to learn about the motivations of each of these different characters. Obviously, the bugs are very cute, but it has like legendary Bugsnax that you don't get to see normally, with like really cool different mechanics and fights to them in a way. And yeah, I had to 100% it. I had to platinum it. Once I platinumed it, I was like, I have to learn to speedrun this. And it got optimized so quickly. People found all these skips within the first week or two of the game being out that shaved it already below 20 minutes at that point. So I was like, it's already optimized. It has a rallying community behind it. This game, I'm in love with this game. I have to learn it. And then I haven't stopped since, really.
So when you okay, so obviously the first thing you did, of course, so you love the game so much, you did all the 100% stuff, you got all the achievements, and then you noticed, you're already into speedrunning, that there was a speedrunning community coalescing around it. Did you just immediately dive into any percent? Was that your approach?
Yes, any percent was the first category that I dove into. Being on console, so console was a little bit less popular at the time, probably only like maybe 6 or so people on the leaderboard, whereas PC probably had like 30. So I played it. I pretty quickly got the world record because it wasn't super competitive on the console at the time. Captured that, and I was like, okay, that's awesome. I learned all these tricks, these skips. But even with the world record, I wasn't feeling satisfied. Not because I wanted to improve that time even more, but I was like, I need something else out of this experience. So I started looking at other categories. I've never felt this way about a speedrun before. Usually I'm satisfied with the one category and I can move on to another game. But I was like, so I need something else out of the speedrun experience, and that's, you know, I kind of fell into No Major Skips in that way, which is even less popular, but in my opinion, a more fun and more interesting run to showcase.
Now, did you end up really kind of like, because it sounds like any percent, like those skips, as you said, got found pretty quickly, but I imagine there was more work to be, like, more work left undone when it came to No Major Skips.
Yes, yeah, that I would say that's the case. It all became about just really tightening up the routing, because a lot of what goes into No Major Skips is just completing these quests fast that these characters give you, so that they return home, so that you can get everyone back to Snacksburg, and then, you know, you have to eventually evacuate. No spoilers. You know, people were just for example, people thought that you have to do a quest, turn it in, do a quest, you can do every quest in advance and then turn them in all at once without even receiving the quest. So it starts with tightening up those things. And then, you know, people will try to, for example, a lot of in the early game is you can't finish somebody's quest in one area until you capture Bugsnax in another area and then turn them into them. So a lot of people would just like go to these areas next, capture them, return. But then you could just also, you know, do these quests while you're there, save time, save trips, things like that. And then not holding on to these Bugsnax so long, so that you can manage your inventory a little bit, because you're limited to holding only a certain amount of Bugsnax at once, things like that. So fine-tuning the routing there, learning these quests, learning how to do things quickly, manipulate the Bugsnax, you know, because they can be little nuggets of RNG madness. A little bit, and then just fine-tuning these techniques and finding unique ways to capture Bugsnax different than what is intended. For example, there's one in an area you're meant to capture a cookie, which is like a little Oreo that runs around on the grass super fast. You can't just catch it normally. It outspeeds you. It's too fast. What the game intends you to do is get a tripwire thing, so it runs into it, trips it, it stuns it, and you capture it. What we do instead is we actually set up this launch pad, and we aim it at a honeybee, which is sticky, right? So then we launch the cookie into the honeybee, which we need to capture anyway. They stick together. You capture them both at once. You get another honeybee because of they start going crazy when they're attacked in the air. They start like dive bombing you. So you get another one as it hits the ground. You know, just finding little fast workarounds. In addition to like the little parkour elements that happen with it as well. That's
really cool that it is that interactive. I feel like when I have watched the game, you know, obviously I watched you know, your current console records for any percent and No Major Skips, and I had seen some of it before. I think closer to when it came out, I think I had watched a little bit of Jabo doing some speed runs. Yeah. And noticing some of the mechanics with the Bugsnax, and I wasn't sure, like I couldn't tell to what extent every Bugsnax was sort of its own individual mini game in a way, with some mechanics, and to what extent they would interact. But what you've just described is really neat. Like it really sounds like there is problem space. You know, there is things you can try and do. Yeah, exactly. And things that you have to adapt to, which is one thing that makes this run so fascinating. It's not just let me run through this route as fast as I can and hope it goes well. Sometimes you're faced with things that you have to adapt, overcome, and then hopefully, you know, not lose so much time in the process. So that it makes it very unique in that regard. Now, of course, you are submitting these to marathons. You're doing these marathons now. You're trying to get it into SGDQ 2021. Do you have time goals for either of these categories, to specifically any percent No Major Skips, to improve them? So No Major Skips has a lot more room. It has a good chunk of room for improvement. For instance, my record is a 111, mid 111. My sum of best is like a low 109. So there's a lot of space in there that I can improve on. Any percent is very optimized as of right now with the current route. So unless somebody beats my time, because there are a few skips in there that there are ways to do them faster, but they're a lot more inconsistent. For example, there's to get into one load zone early, you have to jump over a river, which what I do is the easier and more consistent way, which is to scale rooftops and then jump across the river from the roof. But you can actually just jump straight over the river and then time like a frame perfect inventory open and close, and it makes you like bounce onto the ground instead, which saves like a second and a half, but is really difficult to do consistently.
So if somebody is able to do that consistently and save time, I would probably go back and improve it. One fascinating thing about the any % category too is they got to do one of the IGN devs react to speedrun videos.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and which was done by the current PC world record holder, whose name is Adio. And the developers during that video mentioned that in one section of the game, which is called the Undersnacks, that there is a skip to be found in there that would save us a lot of time. And we still haven't found it. We still haven't found it. What we have discovered is that cave is entirely surrounded by a loading zone. So if we can clip through the floor or the wall somehow, we will load into the next area. We just have to get out of there. But the problem is, in that section, you don't have access to your tools. You can't even run, and jumping is limited. So you don't have a lot of things that would commonly make it so that you can more easily get out of bounds like we do in other sections. So, but if we were able to do that, it would save like a minute and a half, I bet, if we could, off an already very optimized run.
Like a 15, 16-minute run. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. I just want to say that like it's good to have one of those IGN Dev React stories go well. It's not been too long since I talked to a Crash Forerunner. They are all still very mad about how that went. I don't know. Did you hear about that at all? Or
yeah, I'm friendly with the said speedrunner if it's the same one I'm thinking of. And yeah, we just like to say thanks, Bob.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. But I mean, good news here. It seems like, because the other thing I'm looking at too is that for both PC and console, y'all are maintaining a variable for patch version, and it looks like you're running on the most recent patch, and there's no issues.
The developers of this game, which are Young Horses, very speedrun friendly from what we can tell us thus far. One, obviously they know that there's that skip there, and they want us to they're challenging us to find it, as opposed to just giving us the answer, which is just a fun little negging. But they, like I said, this game got broken fast. Within the first week. They've known about all these skips forever. They could have patched them out months ago. And they actively have chosen to keep these skips in because it makes the speedrun interesting. So any patches that they do are more quality of life improvements than anything. And there is the potential going forward that they're going to add things like fast travel, which will actually shave for no major skips 100%. That'll shave that route a lot. Any percent, it won't affect it whatsoever, actually. But because we skip everything. But so like they're just really friendly developers from what I can tell for speedruns, which is really good.
Have you so beyond the devs react video, have you had much interaction with them, like on social media or anything like that?
Not too much. They did a Reddit AMA not terribly long ago, which a bunch of us asked questions about, including, hey, like, you want to tell us a little bit more about that skip you were talking about? And they're remaining pretty coy on that. But beyond that, I haven't personally gotten in touch with them too much. But if I'm lucky enough to get the game into GDQ, that's when I would like to reach out and see if we can get any valuable insight on the GDQ stage, because that's the place to do it.
No, absolutely. That's for someone. I think we both have this experience of running older licensed games that were developed by now defunct developers. It's definitely a way different experience to speedrun a game that is recent in some level of active development and has have developers who are out and about, especially for indies as well, because you might speedrun the latest release from, I don't know, Activision, but those developers probably can't say anything.
They're going
so
NDAs.
So it's definitely a different beast to do something like this. Do you feel like that is like had any sort of impact on the experience of running? I mean, put aside the Harry Potter thing, but running an old game versus running a new game, has that been a big change in dynamic?
Yes, massively so, especially because I've almost only run old games. I think this is literally the only new game that I run out of everything I've ever done. So it has been very, very different. My community jokes a lot of times when I play like these old Game Boy games and stuff like that about like, oh, when are they gonna patch these things out and stuff like that, and that's just like, what are they gonna release new cartridges and things like that? Of course not, So it's to go to something that actively could be patched and the worry that they're going to patch out all these skips, but luckily I lucked out with that in that regard. But it's been a different experience, but a pleasant one so far. But like I said, I think I've gotten lucky with the developer I've chosen to kind of back here.
Oh, sure. It can be all over the place. My thing that I've been working on a lot is a game called Teardown, which is like this voxel-based destruction game. And like, we don't know. We don't, like, there's rumors that they dislike prop flying. And so all the people who do the prop flying category are like, oh my God, is it going to go away when the game leaves early access? I mean, it could, who knows?
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, it's fine. I think it's for the best. I would like to believe that this kind of thing of us doing the work of trying to highlight indie games and how fun they are playing and enjoying playing them is something that is beneficial to the devs in a variety of ways, and that both it's good to see someone play your game and also, to see people present your game on a big stage like a GDQ stage. So hopefully it is a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, and it's just I find that the mentality that more people have than not is that if it doesn't affect the casual experience, then we don't see that it needs to be removed, and some developers agree and some just don't. Right. I mean,
I also agree that I like that to be the metric because, an example I brought up when I've had this discussion in the past was, I think there was a Blair Witch game a year or two ago, and that game apparently was so easy to fall out of bounds that it was happening to like random YouTubers. Yeah. And like, I understand it killed the speedrun community, but like, I get it. You have to address that. But when it's certain invisible walls popping up in very suspicious locations, that feels targeted.
That's hurtful even. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. So hopefully, we can hope for the best. Put our best foot forward. You said for this game, though, you're not done. You're not done with 90% or no major skips. 100% is your next destination?
Yeah, I think so. I got to get through this blitz of marathons and staying prepped for all of that stuff. But once things settle a little bit and I have a chance to breathe, I'd really like to tear into the 100% category. And it's interesting because there's always going to be ever so slightly differences between the PC and the console routes, because the PC, based on text speed alone, will be able to make better cycles than we do because they can get through things faster. So I'm interested. There's only one 100% run on the console leaderboard, and it's like way beyond. I think once I get a run, I'll probably get the world record. Because it's really just not optimized because nobody has really put time into it. So I'd like to learn the route, optimize it, put some time into it, and really make it interesting for people to see and people to run on whatever system they choose.
Sorry, I was looking at the leaderboard and I got really distracted. One of my mods is named Fretsoul with an L, and I looked at the 100% console board and I was like, wait. Oh no, it's Fret C. Okay, all right.
I was gonna say, we're gonna have some competition.
Like, oh my God,
pick up the sticks. Yeah.
No, he's mostly a musician, but I think he did some Celeste speedrun. So, I guess shout outs to Fretsoul. # ban Fretsoul. That's a long inside joke. I'm not gonna get into that.
That's fine.
All right, so let's start heading toward the exit here of the formal script. If folks, I know there's a few folks who are lurking out there watching. Do get your questions if you have questions for Conception. But before we get there, one of the things I like to do to connect the interview series that is this podcast is to get a question from my previous guest for my next guest, and so forth and so on. And so I got this question from Bobby the Blacktastic for you, which is, if there was a soundtrack, if there were a soundtrack to your life, what genre of music would it be? You can also limit it to an album or group if you want to go even more specific.
It's gonna be Queen. Queen is my all-time favorite band, has been for almost as long as I can remember. If I limited it to a album, it would be the Night at the Opera album. It's probably one of my favorites.
Classic. Yeah.
But I've always been just generally speaking, probably a classic rock kind of soundtrack in general, mostly Queen. So I'm thinking like Guardians of the Galaxy kind of soundtrack.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's a great question, Bobby.
Yeah, good job. No, I've been, I've been always pleasantly surprised at what people come up, which does mean, of course, that I do need from you a question for my next guest, who will be a speedrunner. I'm not going to tell you anything about them. The question doesn't have to be about speedrunning. Obviously, you just got a music question. Do you have something in mind?
Oh, okay. It's going to be food-based.
Okay.
For sure. I'm trying to just narrow it down a few places. What has been the best restaurant experience of your life? Because that doesn't mean the food has to be good.
Right.
It could be an experience to it. It could be a story to it. Best restaurant experience of your life.
That's very true. It's almost shameful. I feel like I remember the best food experiences more than I remember the best food. Like, I think that really is true. Like, I will always, for the rest of my life, thinking about the time that a friend of mine invited me to the League of Legends semifinals in Madison Square Garden, and I got deeply, deeply overpriced, like, chicken and waffles and a tall boy of Bud, and like, it was great. I'm sure it was actually bad, but it was great.
Yeah, that just hit the spot. Yeah, it's more about where you were at than anything. That's funny. Yeah, I wish I thought that way. Mine's more about the food itself, I think.
I mean, that's probably for the best. That's honestly, I don't blame you. I am going to give you the spoiler here on who this will be. I'll be curious if you recognize this name. I'm going to put it in the DM. Okay. Do you recognize his name?
Oh, do I? Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, do I?
I thought you might. So that'll be funny. I'll look forward to that answer from that guest for next week. All right. Well, we've been talking a lot about a game that just came out a few months ago or late last year. Do you have other future games that you are excited to play? I think we mentioned one of them already. Do you have even more? You can also mention that one again too.
Yeah, so new Pokemon Snap is definitely the one on the horizon. And to go in that same vein, the Gen 4 remakes, the Shining, Diamond and Pearl. I forget the exact name. It's one of those. I'll probably play. I'll be excited to do those. Trying to think of. It feels like kind of a down year for releases.
Yeah, I mean, the development environment has certainly been affected by the global pandemic, understandably so.
Yes, yeah, 100%.
Wait, you just reminded me though. I guess I should do this because I know it's a thing for to ask Pokemon folks. Favorite gen?
Mine is Gen 1. I get questions like this. I have the similar answer for this question as I do as what my favorite Star Wars movie is. Okay. Which is that I have a favorite, but I know it's not the best one.
Sure.
Yeah. Which is Gen 1's my favorite. It's not the best one. I think probably Gen 2 or 3 are probably the best ones in my opinion. But yeah, something about the nostalgia hit is just strikes me. Plus those ugly sprites, pre-anime sprites. You just love to see them.
It's really strange because I find a lot of people, especially people who speedrun, are very fond of 1, 2, 3. I did play 1, and I did later play 4. 4 was the second one that I did. I got a DS and I got Pearl. I think I'm just a Philistine though because I value quality of life over everything else. And so I love Moon. 7 is my favorite, but like I try not to say that too loud.
Yeah, I like that gen a lot. I really, really liked Sword and Shield as well, which obviously got a lot of flack for the National Dex stuff. But I just think, it's quick enough paced. It doesn't drag on too much, but it changes a lot of interesting mechanics in different ways, but are still more or less fun to play. Wild Area and Gigantic stuff.
I still have not gotten around to it. I definitely look forward to it though. I just always take my time. I just do the main story. I don't do anything more, and I always have a good time with any of those Pokemon games that I've played. So I don't know when I'll get around to one again, but they're always fun. I as a kid, I always thought they would be too repetitive, which is why I never picked another one up until I picked up 4, like Gen 4. And I think looking back at it, that was a silly thing. They're fun to play.
Yeah, definitely suggest a lot of those older gens, especially Gen 1's a little but 2 and 3 are really hold up still. So I always highly suggest those for people who, might be more inclined to play some newer ones. Go back and see where they came from. It's still really, really fascinating.
For sure. How about if you could put more eyeballs on somebody in the community instantly, who would you like to shout out?
Yeah, a couple names come to mind. One is a good friend of mine, Helix, who they are primarily a monkey ball speedrunner. They've had a couple showings at GDQ as well. Wonderful person, has a wonderful community. Also is one of the organizers for Midwest Speed Fest and at their events. Definitely check out their stream. Really wonderful time. Also, a couple of my mods who are also streamers and speedrunners, I'd like to shout out. One of which is Steve TV online. He does speedruns of a lot of like really obscure and fun games that kind of have cult classic status. So like things like Beyond Good and Evil and stuff like that. Really great guy, really friendly, really comfortable stream.
I forget
very cozy.
why. Steve was in my stream a week or two ago, and
I think it was after I rated you.
It was? Oh yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, and I ended up looking at his Speedrunning.com profile, and it was very good.
Yeah, it's very eclectic stuff, very fun stuff. Definitely deserves some more attention. Another one of my mods as well. Her name is Leica. Leica in Space is the full name. She does some Goose Game speedruns, some Mario Kart speedruns, and some other more eclectic stuff. But also is just a real powerhouse in the social justice department. Really outspoken, has a lot of knowledge, a lot of things to pass on to her community. So I always love stopping in there and not only seeing some good speedruns, but learning a lot of stuff. As someone who considers himself pretty educated on stuff, I learned stuff from her literally every day. So those are some people I'd like to shout out, and as well as a good friend of mine, I Have Newt, as well, who speedruns, as mentioned, Super Fancy Pants Adventures she did at AGDQ 2020. Also does a lot of stuff with Celeste, mainly, fan mods and stuff like that as well. But she's a great streamer, great community behind her as well.
Awesome. No. Well, in that note, where should people find you and what should they be looking for? Yeah.
Well, obviously my stream, which is twitch.tv/KonceptioN2. Feel free to follow me. Doing a lot of marathon prep these days, but we're having a good time. So if you like commentary, you like commentated runs, I'm practicing a lot of that in streams as well. So come on by. I also do a podcast, which I kind of set near the top, which is called Handheld Zero. I've only done like 8 episodes or so of it so far, and I took a big season break because I actually just recently, I feel like I've said I've moved like 7 times in this podcast, but I did recently just move from Florida, and now I'm in Minnesota. So I did a big move that required a lot of planning. So it's been quite some time since I've done an episode, but it's a podcast where I just sit down with a handheld game that I've either never played before, haven't played in some time, kind of talk about its development cycle, kind of go into the history behind it, give it a kind of a review score. And I think this next season we're going to do it in themes. So I think I'm kind of thinking the card game theme this coming round.
A lot of good card games that people know about from the handhelds. Yeah.
An Oops All card game season is what I'm thinking.
Excellent. Well, of course, if you're with us right now live, I do have the links here in chat for your Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. And if you are listening after the fact on YouTube or Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts, you can check the show notes, and the links will be there as well. Konception, thank you so much for giving me all this time.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. Like I said, I'm a fan of this show. I'm a fan of yours as well. So getting that message was great. So I really appreciate you having me on here.
No, this has been delightful. But if you have listened to the podcast before, you are well aware that I do need one more thing from you before we move on to the Q&A, which is that I will use a cheesy catchphrase like "Let's boost on out of here," and you will give me your best rocket engine noise. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Folks, thank you so much for listening. Let's boost on out of here. Excellent. Perfect. All right, folks. If you got questions, please drop them in. Well, let's go. Coca got a nice one here, which is, what's your favorite video game soundtrack?
Ooh, video game soundtrack. It's gonna sound biased. Grand Fandango has some slappy jazz tunes that I think people should really listen to. Really great soundtrack. And also an underrated one that I've been enjoying recently. I don't know if I'd call it a favorite, but I recently did a playthrough of indie puzzle game Maquette. Really, really great, like indie rock and folk kind of soundtrack to it, with a lot of like just more modern artists, which I really, really enjoyed. So I would check out that soundtrack as well. And Pokemon. I mean, like the classic chiptune Pokemon soundtracks are great.
Oh yeah, yeah. No,
yeah, who doesn't love those?
That was one of the I once went to a Pokemon orchestra concert, which obviously that chips it, but the melodies are classic. You love that stuff.
Absolutely.
My buddy Albert here is a speed friend who always shouts out a very obscure game. Albert's big on very obscure games, so I guess he's assigned to you Dr. Brain Action Reaction. You can do with that what you want to do.
Dr. Brain Action Reaction. Yes. I don't even know what that is.
Probably, if I had to guess, probably a very obscure build engine game from the 90s. That would be my assumption. We'll find out.
I'm putting a note in my phone here.
Watch the run. All right, there you go. Unreal Engine. My bad. See, I got the okay. Well, I was close. All right.
Okay. Yeah, pretty close.
All right.
There we go.
Arch Magus has got a question here, which is so given that speedrunning is gently antagonistic towards the design of the game itself, do you feel it is better for the speedrun that you would have a game developer which does not undermine runners but also doesn't assist them, or a developer that would actively support speedrunners?
So actively support is tricky, right? Because they can obviously throw all their support behind speedrunners, but also could, not do anything to improve the quality of life of the game for the casual player as well. So I think it's finding that middle ground. It's finding that, like a developer that really looks at what makes the speedrun interesting and keeps what is able to and what doesn't affect the normal everyday player. But makes an adaptations and changes to make the general experience enjoyable for everybody. So yeah, I think closer to that middle ground one as opposed to full on support.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we can all agree that doesn't actively undermining the invisible walls will forever stand as a monument to things that we do not like. No. But in terms of to what extent do you actively court them? I feel like two things come to mind. One of them are things like certain quality of life options, skippable cutscenes, etc., things like that. Yeah. But also sometimes it can end up being a separate fork. I remember one time at a Twitch meetup in Philly, I ran into a Hat in Time developer who talked to me at length about how they maintained a separate fork, for speedrunning. But also, sometimes part of the fun of speedrunning is that speedrunners find a way. Yeah. Accelerated backhopping. Are you familiar with Half-Life 2 at all? Or
yes, yeah.
So you're familiar with the idea of ABH, then you realize that that was a situation where there was some active undermining, but boys, their face red. It turned into an even bigger thing. So it's kind of interesting. To what extent do you want that active engagement? Because as speedrunners, our goal is just to solve the problem in this kind of neutral problem space. And the fact that the problem space can be modified. I don't know. It was hard because I feel like I could take Archie's question and just constantly reword it, as a constantly moving target. Do you have anything more to add on? I've just been rambling there for a second.
No, I perfectly agree with everything you're saying. As somebody who... I'm not somebody who has an overly routing mindset. When it comes to speedrunning, I'm not somebody who is going to hunt out glitches, tricks, skips, stuff like that. I'm more of a studier and practicer and kind of brute force strategy behind it. So I think for those who really enjoy the practicality of cracking the nut of a game and conquering it, I'm sure I can't imagine how satisfying that must be for them. But as somebody who doesn't get any enjoyment out of that, I'm just like, yeah, like don't undermine us, but also, you know, make it so that people can still enjoy this on a day-to-day basis.
Here we go. We got a question from Dab. Speedrunning, you know, has been growing, still growing. Do you think there's any particular destination this is leading towards? Is there some sort of upper limit on the popularity of speedrunning? Do you have any big speedrunning takes in terms of the growth and popularity of it?
I can't imagine that it wouldn't continue growing at this stage. I mean, for it to fall off would mean that I would imagine video games in general would be becoming less popular. And you know, people have been saying for years that video games will eventually die off. People will grow up and grow out of it and stuff like that. But they haven't, and they aren't slowing down in any regard. So I tend to think that as long as there are video games, people who are passionate about them, that there are going to be people who want to run them. So I can't imagine. The sky's the limit for speedrunning. I'd love to see, in terms of growth, more of an acceptance of it in the esports scene side of things, right? So obviously it's very popular when it comes to like GDQs and the charity fundraiser portions, but I would love to see more of speedrunning competitions and things where, you know, where prize pools are involved, teams are involved, you know, these famous, like, you know, 100 themes and phase, you know, get speedrunning teams, you know, in order to get to a more like hardcore competitive market. I think that would be really interesting as a viewer to see something like that. You know, one thing I've always loved watching, for example, in the past few years, not last year obviously, but like the Celeste World Championships, just seeing people like speedrun this game and speedrun through things as fast as possible. You know, TGH is one of the people I watch a lot, and you know, just seeing how not only is somebody like that incredible at this game, but be able to perform at an incredible level in a high pressure situation, such as a competitive thing where money is on the line. You know, something like that. I feel like that is the next logical step. I don't know if that is something that, you know, people are going to really glom onto as much as, say, you know, Call of Duty or Fortnite or something like that in competitive scene. But I personally would love to see that. Yeah,
I mean, I think unfortunately that kind of thing has been interrupted. I feel like there were some events, you know, that were moving that direction. You know, Pace, Barrier, Speedrun Show. Like there were some things going in that direction. Of course, COVID has interrupted a lot of that kind of, especially the well-produced in-person format. You know, has definitely been sidelined for the time being. All right, we're coming up on the end of the front page. So I want to get to Archie's next question here because it's kind of a good one. I think is funny, which is a lot of people talk about casually playing a game before speedrunning a game. Archie's question is there a game that you love to run or would love to run, but that you're never going to play casually? This is only going to play it for the speedrun.
Let me think. So another thing I was a big fan of as a kid was Yu-Gi-Oh! Loved Yu-Gi-Oh! As a kid. And there's an interest. I have a general interest in running some Yu-Gi-Oh! Game. But am I going to sit there for hours grinding out, getting specific cards in order to defeat final bosses and stuff like that in a casual experience? Probably not. If there's some way that I could learn to RNG manipulate, even to learn RNG manipulation to play the game casually, maybe would be something I'd like to do. But if I were ever to get into a Yu-Gi-Oh! Game speedrun that I haven't ever run before, I'm not gonna play that casually. I don't have hours upon hours to think into that.
You know, I bet a lot of people have only speedrun Forbidden Memories. Like, let's be honest about this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, take a look at the vanilla categories and say how getting a 1 card or 2 cards a victory. Come on, like that's insufferable. And then it's all RNG based, so no, insufferable. But yeah, so something like that probably.
No, that's a good answer. Well, all right. Well, my final question for you is: do you have someone that I can raid now?
Ooh, let me pull up my Twitch page real quick. Actually, see who's online. Let me see. Well, I would shout out that Midwest Speed Fest is actively online. Currently, they have a run of Rockman and Forte going on. So
that
obscure
like a pretty good
Mega
one
Man
to me.
Yeah. our mutual friend Rico is doing some Twin Sanity runs. It's always very fun. But yeah, I feel like let's lean towards Midwest. They could use the boost, and yeah, if you got the money to donate, they're raising money for Sweet Relief, which is if I'm not mistaken, is a charity that helps support musicians during these COVID times who have suffered and haven't had ways to earn money without live performances.
The normal income, yeah, for sure, definitely. That is that's a good cause. I do some music stuff, or used to do more, do a little less now, but definitely have those musical ties and know that those folks are not, especially do not have access to the sort of normal income that they would otherwise have. So that's a good one. All right, well, I'm gonna queue that up. We'll see how many people are real and how many people are Speedrunning.com front page viewers.
Yeah,
but
that might be the case. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's no worries. We'll send folks over there anyway. I'm gonna let you go. Thank you again so much. This was really a lot of fun. Great episode, and I hope you enjoyed it.
I had a blast. Thank you so much for having me on again. I really, really appreciate it.
Excellent. Well, I'll let you go now. Take care. Have a great night.
You too. Bye bye.